So, hi everyone, welcome to our first virtual show and our summer show. So we're absolutely thrilled to have Robert Goodman as our juror. And just a little background on Robert. He received his BFA from Cleveland Institute of Art, his MFA right here in Philadelphia at Tyler School of Art. So his artist statement indicates that his work explores the relationships and tensions between spaces, bodies, and materials in painting, as well as public works and installations. So he has experience in a number of different media, and he shows his work in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in New York, and he's also presented at a number of universities, including Pace, Sarah Lawrence College, Emory and Henry College, and Rutgers. So we welcome Robert, and we're absolutely thrilled to have him. And thank you all for showing up and also for participating in our show. I do want to make one announcement that we will be having a critic come, Zoe Frank, on Sunday at 4 p.m. if you would like to join us on the Zoom and see what she has to say about some of the artist's work. And I want to thank Alice for setting all of that up. So with that, we welcome Robert, and he's going to take us through the show.
Before I do that, I'm going to admit someone from the waiting room. It's funny having this admin. Oh, okay.
So can do that.
Okay. So thanks everybody for the privilege of looking at your work. I really enjoyed seeing what everyone had to make, and it was really nice seeing a group of people so committed to a notion of craft and I think also a kind of sense of persistence in the work. So I'm really excited to be able to speak with you. So, if at any point you have any questions, please let me know. And also, if when I get to your piece, if you're here, I'll ask if you're here. If you're not here, maybe I'll keep it a little bit brief. But if you are, I'd be curious if you could just kind of identify yourself so I could know who I'm talking to. So let me go ahead and get started. Okay, so everybody can see this, right? This is the gallery. Okay, good. I've got some nods. Great, thank you. So this, beautiful space hung by Robin represents, all of your work in a physical environment, even though this is, a virtual space. So I thought to start, what I might do is give you a little bit of an orientation to how the space looks. Then I might kind of characterize my impressions of the works overall, and then just talk a little bit about the works themselves. So let's go ahead and get started. The space. You walk a little slowly in this virtual world. So you can see it is really nice seeing the works in conversation with one another, which has been one of the challenges of pandemic art viewing, is seeing works in isolation. So I'll come over to this corner so you can get a sense of this a little bit closer, and then I'll talk about the works in a bit more depth. And Robin did a good job of identifying some trends among the works that I'm turning in the wrong direction. Hold on. I don't need to give anyone motion sickness. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, we'll stop doing this for a second. There we go. And I'll come a little closer here. Okay, so I'll just leave this for a second. To my mind, I think that the exhibition, um, there's a clear sense of a formal investigation by every single artist that submitted work. And I understand some of the basic kind of things holding this exhibition together to be explorations of color, form, space, and landscape. There are some explorations of figurative work, quite a few references to art historical figures, which I thought was really interesting. And a lot of the figurative and landscape elements represented in the show seem to be an entry into abstraction, which I also thought was really nice. And as I said earlier, I think that all of the work that was submitted demonstrates a real commitment to a particular vision and an interest in craft. I mean, all the work was highly well crafted. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm turn around so I can start at where my notes are. So if you haven't had a chance to explore the space yet, you can use these little guys here to navigate, or you can use your trackpad or mouse to move you around. But once you see something you'd like to see, you just click on it and it'll walk up to it. And there's this information here that gives you a little bit more information on the piece. So if you haven't had a chance to just explore how the virtual gallery behaves. Linda, are you here? I don't think I saw Linda. Well, interestingly, Linda was a colleague of mine years ago at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Anyway, what I wanted to say about this painting, and or work on paper, I believe. And I did want to ask her if she were around what the size of the work is, because I get the sense that it is presented here larger than it might be in real life. But what I really like about this piece is the kind of sense of intimacy among the different types of papers. That's why I get a sense that this is, a certain kind of rice paper. And I think that the textures that are represented in the paper give the work a kind of intimacy that I think plays really nicely off the graphic shapes and thematic content. So I like the kind of play with intimacy and grandeur that's happening here. And that's why I selected this piece.
Excuse me, Robert, I think if you click the eye, you might be able to see hopefully you'll be able to see the dimensions.
Oh, so it does. Well, let me go back. Thank you. Nope, not this one. But in general, you're right. So what's nice about this gallery too is when you click next, it kind of takes you across the wall and not just to the immediate next one. So it gives you the sense of still seeing the works in conversation. This is Kathleen Wirt. Are you here, Kathleen? I can't hear anybody. But if you are here, congratulations, because this is the first place entry into the exhibition. I really love this drawing. I think that, again, with this, similar to Linda's piece, there's this idea of intimacy, delicacy, but also a similar sort of micro-macro thing that goes on where this looks like a pile of clothes, but it also looks like the cosmos, but it also looks expansive, but it also looks up close. And I think that it does all of those things in a way that doesn't feel hectic. It feels melancholic. It feels soft and beautiful and subtle, and even ventures into the abstract with, to me, references of Jackson Pollock. There's no clear sense of gravity in the piece. In fact, the gravity seems to be on the upper part of the drawing. And so this is a really beautiful piece, and I decided it was the first place. If anyone has questions along the way, please feel free to jump in. Jennifer, I might just quit asking if people are here. Oh, you're here. Oh, great. Well, thank you.
This painting, was that a drawing, the doilies?
I'm pretty sure that was a drawing. It looked like a drawing to me. It looked like graphite.
Yeah, it's graphite
That was
on
beautiful.
paper.
Okay, I'll mute again. Thank you.
So this painting, I am really it's a beautiful and highly, to me, unusually composed image that reminds me of certain contemporary painters. And, I'm reminded in particular of Anselm Kiefer, but I'm also reminded of an artist who you may or may not know called Peter Doig. And Peter Doig did this amazing painting called, I think it's called like Modernist Home or something. And it's a beautiful painting of this house, but it's almost completely interrupted in front of it with all these branches and foliage that abstract the entire space. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful painting. And I love the idea that there is this kind of obscuring that happens in the painting. It seems like a highly unusual solution to the problem of kind of visual coherence. And in fact, it seems to want to break the image apart even further because you've got that sort of architecture behind it. Another thing that's happening that I really like here is, you've got this dark area that connects with these sort of broader dark areas, geometric dark areas against the more sort of naturalistic dark areas, but then the blue carries into the blue of the architecture, which carries into a blue that, penetrates the green area, offering just to me, a very, very innovative painting that I was really excited to see. So Jennifer, if you're here, I can't wait to see more. Robin Burkhart. So this is a sort of a smaller painting, and I didn't see this. I didn't see this earlier, but I'm surprised actually to see this as acrylic because when I tend to think of acrylic painting, I tend to think of it as being a little flatter in its composition, or possibly being a little bit more synthetic. And that's not a bad thing actually. I'm in my studio and I use acrylic and oil and spray paint and all sorts of things, but it really has the richness of an oil painting, and I think oil painting is really well suited to landscape. So it's really nice to see. This painting also does one of the things that I think is really special in painting, which is it is both depictional and also celebrates the materiality of it. So you have this idea of, these boats in the distance, or the paint, or the clouds, but the painting sort of devolves into just pure materiality here. But it doesn't feel separate from the painting. Separate from the painting also would be interesting, but it feels like it was really within the world of the image. And so I was really excited to see this, and I think it adds a really sophisticated attention to the work that I think is really sophisticated, or that I think is really successful. Phyllis Anderson, I don't know if you're here, but when I looked at this, it was really, oh, there you are. You see, you raised your hand, but I don't see you. Oh, there you are. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. When I saw the work, my goal is to choose, one from a lot of people. I didn't want to, and your collection of paintings made it really difficult to only choose one. And I think in a lot of ways, it's because the work really, the pieces, it's almost like you built a sort of mythology around your surfaces and your marks and the textures, and they really benefit from the presence of other works. And so I was really, really excited to see this. And, as you spend time with the works, they start to do interesting things, like elements of the sky seem to become solid like rocks. And elements of the rock seem to want to open up into sky. Or, in this area seems to reference this, single white tree. And I was really drawn to that in the work. I also am reminded when I look at this work, not necessarily formally for this first person, but I'm reminded of the kind of world that Charles Birchfield creates in his paintings, where I see it very much in the work where, you feel the vibrations of trees and beings and all of that kind of reverberating off of each other. So I was really excited to see that in this work. And then the other artist I think of only for a kind of hand that I see present here is a former colleague of mine in Philadelphia, Mo Brooker, who, I don't know if you know his paintings, but I definitely see a kind of touch that is the same. So yeah, really, really beautiful paintings. And, I hope I can see a collection of them together at some point. So nice. And I'll be available for questions, at the conclusion.
Yeah, maybe Rob, I'll mention that Phyllis has the honorable mention award in landscape.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'll just jump in periodically.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I forgot to announce that. I have my own list here, but I got caught up. All right, and Sally Richards, if you're here, you can raise your hand. That seemed pretty effective. 18 by 24. This painting reminds me of, in some ways, a lot of what I do in my own painting. So I was excited to see it. I think so much of painting is about like a sort of, it's like magic, right? It's like a slip of the hand or, whatever. And what I like sometimes in painting is when those little tricks are revealed in really subtle ways. And so, I was really, I found, this little shadow over here to be kind of charming that, you've got these fully flat areas and then this flat area causing this little shadow. I also found these little kind of subtle drop shadows also to be pretty interesting. And then there's a sequencing of the painting, which I always think sequencing of paintings is, when I look at paintings, I always ask myself how the artist made it. When I look at this, I think that probably the first thing that happened was like a yellow ground that you can see kind of underneath here and underneath here. And then on top of that, the screen, and then probably this area. So, all the way that things are painted, this is actually painted to be in front of this. And then you've got these little shadows that start to do these sort of spatial games. So I think, to me, this is a painting that's playing a lot of really fun games. And I think it adds up to, a compelling image. There's also, if you can see it, just the subtlest little dark line here. And I think those little moments in paintings are, just really rewarding. Right, move on. Matthew, are you here? All right, Matthew. So good to meet you. This was a really, you got third place for this painting. So congratulations. I was really, really excited by this painting. I say this in not a way that is qualitative. In fact, I mean it as a positive, but I think this is a really unusual and kind of weird painting. The way that we are oriented, where the kind of crumbling wall becomes the surface of the image, and then we're offered this peek through, reminds me of the Duchamp at the PMA, right? Looking through the hole. But it also reminds me of some of those structures and strategies that you see in trompe-l'oeil painting. But then you do this completely unexpected maneuver by having the paint be so materially intensive and operating across the entire surface of the canvas. It reminds me in that sense of like Morandi painting or like a Philip Guston painting. The color itself is just so unusual. I mean, it's not rare you see an entirely brown painting. It's a painting that almost has like a defiance to it. I may be projecting, but these are all things that I found really compelling about this work and to me, highly unusual. And it really gripped me. So congratulations. should I be monitoring the chat? Is somebody making sure?
I'll monitor it. Don't
Okay.
worry.
Yeah, no worries. I'm used to like a year of Zoom teaching, and I don't know, and the pitfalls of it. All right, Susan, are you here? Susan? Well, Susan's piece was really interesting to me because I find that largely the work that I saw in the show seemed oriented to sort of formal concerns or real like material concerns. And I suspect Susan may actually disagree with me, but I found this piece to be really conceptually oriented. This painting seemed to be asking questions about, what a painting is. And I like that the weave of the canvas was rendered so visible. I like that, she's pushing things through that kind of broadened weave, that it's sort of sits awkwardly with, these greens and oranges. It seems to occupy a space of depth and flatness and just acknowledging its kind of paintingness in a way that I just thought was super interesting. And when I look at this work and I think of other artists that are, to me, analogous, I think of a couple of contemporary artists. One is Donna Nelson, who is sort of a Philadelphia-based artist. She teaches at Tyler. And another one is Fabian Marcaccio. And both of these artists, use the front and back of the canvas. They pour things on the canvas. They'll cut them up. And I think that this indicates a real experimental and willingness to take risks. And I was excited to see it. Right, Sue. Oh, two people raised their hand. Oh, there you are, Sue. Well, very interesting and beautiful painting. What I was really drawn to in this image is, well, there's like the thing that's indicated and then the sort of absolute, right? There's the shapes that want to give this a really definitive design quality. So they want to kind of hold the composition in a certain way. And then those are framed by, so those I would call the sort of more definitive gestures. And then those are framed by these kind of apparition-like spaces that seem to want to indicate, in this case, a figure. And I can see skies, I can see objects or bodies. And I was really drawn to the comparison between this sort of the recognizable form is rendered as ambiguous, and the unrecognizable form is rendered unambiguous. And that seemed like an unusual juxtaposition to me. And so I was super excited. In addition, I mean, it's just a really well-constructed painting, and you clearly can move the paint around. And it's not easy to necessarily paint like this against something like this and have it be so well crafted. So, but I was really drawn to the juxtaposition between the two elements. All right, I will move on, but nice job, Sue. Cheryl.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
I think I talked about this a little bit with the first work when I talked about the gravity being sort of in the work being unexpected. And I think that's one of the things I was so intrigued by here is that the work resembles things that you tend to see flat on a table or on a surface, but it's presented vertically. In addition, its function is not fully clear. Like it pulls patterns and it pulls traditions, or I don't know what the right word is, but it's pulling from the language of crafts, but offering a completely unusual new experience that becomes hard to define. And I found that my difficulty in pinning the work down moved it into a pretty compelling space where I was able to just kind of think of the work independent in some ways of those expectations. So I really was really excited by this, and also just a real inventiveness in the use of material.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will ask a question. Was all of this hand stitched?
No, most of it, the majority of it is done on the machine. I do sort of a collage of fabric, and I do a technique where it's like pasted down. The fabric is pasted down, just sort of like the way you would do a collage. And then I came back into it with free motion embroidery. And also the squiggly lines that are sort of around the flower, those are sort of three-dimensional and they're hand stitched on.
That's super interesting. I'll say, you know, teaching at a college, we have a lot of digital technologies, and the students will use often, basically, anytime they want to make something that kind of remotely resembles this, they'll stick it on what we have, a digital embroidery machine that just does it all. But and when they want to get something really exciting looking, they try and like jam it with information so it glitches. And I like that you just did it like by hand.
Yeah.
You're not trying to like, you know, and I just think that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Alan, I really like the title of this piece, actually. So, you know, I think that this is a really interesting piece to me in that it feels both diagrammatic and spatial. And so, you know, by diagrammatic, I think of like an airplane terminal map, or the map of a city, but at the same time, I'm looking at this, I'm seeing space and dimension. And so, you know, one of the things that I'm always interested in as a painter is where I'm positioned. I mean, I feel like as a painter, we have a lot of, or as painters, we have a lot of control over how viewers experience the work. You know, it's why I actually think of painting as a more of a movement-based art than even film, because you know, when you're standing in front of it, you can move someone's eye, you can tell where to stand, you can tell where people to stand in like multiple registers, and you can also tell people how long to stay. You know, those are all tools that are available to you as a painter. And I think that the tension here between the sort of diagrammatic, notational information, and then that sort of less apparent, but more spatial and more, I don't know, material, just seems like a really beautiful and interesting counter. And then, you know, I think that, you know, titles can be really tricky, but I think that this title also added a degree of humor to the painting, which, you know, was sort of unexpected. You know, an artist that is similar to me for this is Amy Sillman, and you know, I think in her work there's often these kind of diagrammatic or notational information against these really painterly gestures, and then like a hilarious title that clues you into something else about the work. So, you know, I think it's a really, you know, interesting pairings. I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong, but Aida?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm here.
Good. And hopefully I said your name correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, I was really I actually was just really struck by the simplicity, and I'm not saying it was simple to make, but I was just really struck by the just sort of directness and honesty and of the painting. And you know, sometimes that's all that's all you need. I mean, I'm teaching my painting students right now all about Morandi's paintings, and you know, about how he utilized the same kind of strategies and elements over and over again, and just generated an entire body of really beautiful work that wasn't about the objects at all. And I feel something similar here, where there's a sense of melancholic and a sense of light, but also it feels direct and honest. And I don't know, something about the kind of directness of this painting just really struck me. So thought it was beautiful, or is.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Robin Stone, you're here.
Yep. Here I am.
Yeah, you know, when I saw the submissions, this was the one that was like way out there. And I was like, I love this one. I mean, it feels like, I don't know. I mean, it's doing such unusual things. You know, I talked about Peter Doig. There's another really famous Peter Doig that the PMA owns, where he uses these sort of acidic colors and I don't know, these that almost like grotesque forms that are just you know, make the figures feel radiating in a way that is I don't know. There's a kind of permeability between the subject and the environment. There's a blurring that exists between inner and outer. There's these really, yeah, I guess I'd say permeability seems like the thing that is, even that top portion that seems the most distinct. If you look over to the right, you know, it even starts to invade that that kind of central portion. So it feels like nothing is separate in this piece, and that really excited me about it. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I was taken aback by it, because you know, I love when I'm surprised, and I felt very surprised by this painting.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to admit someone from the waiting group. Okay, next piece. So Valletta, I have received, you know, in the early start of this process, I received an email from Valletta, you know, mentioning the opportunity, and I was immediately intrigued because it's such a beautiful and a name that I hadn't heard before. So I was, you know, of course, fascinated. And the intrigue only deepened when I saw the work. So I'm really curious to meet you one day, Valletta. You know, this has elements of Miro, De Chirico, but it's doing something else, you know, that feels like it explores, you know, gender, proximity, dreams, surrealism. I mean, I don't even, there seems like there's a significance to the decisions that I don't fully have access to, but I don't also feel as though I need that to buy into the work. I also, there's a sort of dreaminess in the color palette that that I really like, where it feels like the edges don't get very hard. You know, everything feels very soft. Even the harshest parts of it feel soft. So I think that I am I'm highly intrigued by the work, and I hope to see more of it. Florence, are you here? Well, Florence, if you were, I would be pleased to tell you that you won second place for this. And, it was a really difficult decision for me because between, first and second, well, actually all of them. But it was difficult. It was a difficult decision because I was really, this feels really fresh to me. It feels, let's actually see how big it is. It's nice and big. It's mixing genres, but it does so in a way that seems to make sense. It feels energetic. I was very just drawn to this piece, kind of graphically, formally, but also energetically. So really nice job.
I'll mention, Rob, Florence is in attendance, but she may want to be muted, want to stay muted, but she is attending.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations, Florence. Beautiful painting. I love it. I wish I could have seen it in person. Yeah. Kathleen. So Kathleen, let me just double check, make sure. So I don't know the size of the material in this one, but it looks to be metal. And I'm imagining some elements are painted. I would also guess, which is probably problematic to do, but I would guess it looks to be about 2 feet. Could be wrong. But there's a couple pieces in this exhibition that have this sort of playful abstraction that, that looks like the things are pointing to referential things, but those referential things aren't always fully clear. So you'll see things like, springs or squiggles or fans or, lots of things like that, but you're not quite clear where it all comes from. And, does it reside in the world of cartoons or, it feels very Elizabeth Murray to me. So, I'm excited to see a kind of humor embedded in some of these pieces. So nice job. Okay, Ellen. I was comparing this when I first took a look at this to Linda's piece that we showed at the very beginning of, it was the Great American West or something like that. Because there's a similar collage technique, but what's interesting to me is that wants to utilize the intimacy of those materials to talk about this kind of vast space, and this piece to me seemed to want to utilize the intimacy of the materials to talk about a body. The thing that's there feels much closer and feels much more physical in nature. So I was excited to see those and think about those in relation to one another. Holly, are you there? I love this painting. There were not enough awards to give as many beautiful paintings as I saw in this exhibition, but this definitely would have been a contender. Again, what I love about artwork is when it seems as though I'm entering into a world and a logic that I have not previously had access to. And I like work that does that, but that does so, in a skillful way. And I look at this, and again, I don't fully feel as though I know what's going on in this image. But the logic is built so thoroughly that I believe it anyway. And I think that you get that logic, or you get that buy-in from a viewer when one, I think you really believe it yourself and you've done the work to make that world complete. But I think also when you know how to move the paint around, and I think that it looks like there might be some kind of transfer in places, I'm not exactly sure how it was made, but I do love the way that these painted elements sit next to some of these other kind of black and white elements. So very nice. All right, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Really nice painting. I think that the clear reference is de Kooning in the work, but I think the work is is a much nicer de Kooning. I think works can be a little nasty, and these seem like they utilize the energy and the sort of impulse to abstract, but in ways that look like they are combining figures or talking about something that is the content feels very different, even if the strategies feel similar. So that's a really interesting take on the sort of gestural, figurative work. I also really like that it is largely, like, you seem like you're using color here to direct us in certain ways. And so I like that much of the painting is black and white. I mean, there's color everywhere. There's like oranges here and like an orange gray through here. But largely it's sort of with a reduced palette. And then you've got these just sort of beautiful and subtle reds and pinks and oranges that add something, add a contrast to the work that I think is just really successful. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I realize I'm blowing through. I wanted to make sure to talk about everyone's work. And I'm trying to offer as incisive feedback as possible. But, in an ideal world, this would be there would be fewer pieces and it would be more of a conversation. But I am, completely available for questions or, comments after. Jocelyn, are you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
All right. Jocelyn, I really love this painting. I think that it is so beautiful and soft and captures the light. And yeah, and if I could give you any advice, is that continue going in this direction, because this is to me the much that some of the other paintings felt very like handled. They're good, but they felt very like bound together. And this feels light and airy, and that really works so well with the medium that you're using. And I think it's a medium that values lightness and air. And so I think I'd really allow yourself to continue having these paintings feel like they've got like a really nice breath to them, like this one does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I enjoyed it very much when I was doing it. Yeah.
It looks like it. It's a beautiful painting.
Thank you.
All right, Mary, are you here? Well, Mary, if you are watching later on the recording.
Mary's in attendance. Yeah, Mary's here.
Okay, great. So, I think that this is a painting that seems like it references a sort of mid-century modern vibe, and I think that that's really fun about it. But then there's this sort of yellow square in the background, and when I was trying to think about how to think about it, I was like, it's reminding me almost like going to a tiki bar that has Rothkos hanging in it, and I like that. I like that tension between this sort of reverence of this sort of yellow, sort of atmospheric square in the middle, and then the sort of playfulness of these shapes that come in. And I can't. And I also, by the way, in the yellow, I love that it gets lighter right down here. It gives that square some movement that I think helps the other elements also seem like they want to dangle. It's the movement here, I think, that allows these other elements to feel like they've got that movement. And I'm intrigued by the title. I don't know what it means. But I'm intrigued by it. And I also like that it's,
Can you hear me?
yeah, yes.
It was actually, I don't know if you knew Leonard Nelson. He was at Moore College for a while. A teacher, did a lot of field paints. What did you call it? Field painting, where the colors, just lots of color. Anyway, he gave his dress to his wife. Leonard Nelson died many years ago. So I got a piece of the dress. And so the whole, I just thought, I can't throw it away. I mean, his wife gave me his dress, the dress he made for her. And so the hole in there was where it was for her head. And so I cut it up and just put it in a couple of paintings, just collaged it in. And then
Wow, that's
did the dripping. So that's Leonard Nelson and the dress he gave his wife.
fascinating. Yeah, you know, I think that that's a really great story. And
But you teach it more, so you might not remember Nelson.
well, I think that
Leonard Nelson.
he may have been before my time, but I'm gonna definitely look him up as soon as we get off the call.
Okay.
But beautiful piece. And you know, I think it, while it may have sort of somber or melancholic origins, you know, it to me is a painting that does exude like a kind of something more joyful. So hopefully that was part of your intent.
I know that dripping the painting was part of the pleasure of painting that, just watching the drips go down.
Yeah, great. Well, nice job. Okay, and I'll start speeding up and realize I'm going slow. But Liz, are you here? Nope. Well, if you're watching, you know, later, Liz, you know, when I first encountered, oh, Liz, I think you won an honorable mention for this. And one of the things that really drew me to this painting was, well, I think that you could look at it at first and say, well, half the entire center of the painting is basically empty. But when, you know, when I teach painting, when I think about it, you know, if I set up a still life for my students, and I always tell them, you know, you're not painting a shoe or a flower, or, you know, you're painting a scenario, and the scenario includes all the things in the still life. It also includes the light that's coming through the window. It includes you, the maker. It includes everyone else in that room. Even if you can't see it, that all needs to be in the painting. And I love that that's actually what this painting is about you know, making a painting of wind, which is something, you know, generally invisible. So I was just really drawn to the impulse to represent that. Armor.
That's Amir.
Another Amir. Thank you.
No, it's armor, like a suit of armor.
Okay, armor. Got it. Well, I apologize. I apologize for getting that wrong. You know, this is a painting that, to me, well, to me, the thing that really makes this painting is the gold background. It adds, you know, there's the kind of conflicting gravities where the paint is dripping in one way and then dripping in the other. There's the layering where you've got the green and the blue, and then you paint this other form around it or drips around it. But all of that movement seems like it's very interestingly frozen and made absolute by that boundary. And I think, to me, that's a really exciting way to sort of take things that want to look like they want to continue moving and just freeze it. There's an artist that is escaping me, but if I think about it, I will say it. But
Is it
Is it
Morris
who?
Lewis? Morris Lewis or something like that?
Well, Morris Lewis definitely in terms of the approach, but I was actually thinking about someone whose work looks nothing like his. And it's she does do really intense drawings of spider webs. She did someone shooting a gun, the ocean. Anyway, what I like about those is that she takes all these things that are moving, right? She'll paint an airplane, and the way that she paints it just stops it in time. And it just stops any sense of actual movement. The plane looks like it's going to fall out of the sky. And I think, in a weird way, this kind of attributing this really crisp order does something really interesting to the rest of the movement in the piece that I think is really unusual and a successful gesture. So this is Lee.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Nice to meet you, Lee. I love the kind of painting that has as its basis a sort of improvisational nature, and I don't want to necessarily assume that about it, but it looks like you'll put down a form and you'll paint something over it and you'll scrape into it and you'll put 2 red marks on and you'll splat paint. And it feels to me like this is the kind of abstraction that feels like the artist is very, very present with their work. And I think a lot of artists actually really struggle with that level of presentness. And I think that this is a work where when I'm personally making paintings, I like to scan the entire painting, and when everything is doing what I want it to do, then that's when the painting's done. And it seems like there is the entire, and one thing that I'm always looking for are there parts of the painting where you can just tell I was absent, or like the mark isn't a present mark, and I don't see anything that feels like it wasn't present. And so that's what really drew me to this work.
Thank you.
Sandra. So for this painting.
Hello.
Oh, hi. So, I think there's in the show, there's abstraction that wants to reference, forms and objects and figures. But this is an abstract painting that feels like reference a gesture, which feels like a really different thing to me. And I feel like I'm sort of my thought is sort of confirmed by the title of the piece, but I'm not sure I necessarily attribute. I mean, I could see water if I thought about it in a certain way, but it doesn't actually. It feels. I mean, there is a horizon line, but overall, it feels like there is a gesture that's being articulated more so than any other part of it. And I think that the representation of gesture is one of the most challenging things. People think you perform gesture, but often you represent it, and I think that that's a really sophisticated way to think about abstraction. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Lois, are you here? Well, you won an honorable mention for this. This piece, I really love. And when I think about what I like about it, it's it's as visual people, our desire to create meaning out of patterns. And so it's like when you look at the clouds and you're like, oh, that's a elephant or whatever. This is circles and lines and squiggles. And yet I look at it with as, you know, like a creature with like a big nose who is potentially driving a car or eating a cookie or holding something circular. And, you know, the ability to see those kinds of, to build those kinds of narratives out of such a kind of graphic language, that where, you know, they really don't resemble hands, and they really don't resemble eyes or a nose, and yet I want to put these things in an order that they resemble that. You know, so I mean, it could as clearly or as easily, I suppose, be a map of somewhere. So I'm really drawn to that. I'm also just formally very drawn to the overall craft of this. It's a very well painted painting that, you know, clearly took a lot of skill. And let me see the size here. And also, you know, fairly large painting, which I think benefits, would benefit a work like this. You know, I think, actually, I could also see it as sort of a smaller gouache or egg tempera, but I think that, you know, the size feels like, you know, it's appropriate for the nature of the image. So if you know anything about me, I'm not I make abstract paintings, and so the only person I think in this show that got 2 pieces in is Kathleen, and this is the second piece. And, you know, I think that there are some, you know, representational works that just really seem to get at, I mean, that can get at something, you know, heavily emotional. And I look at this drawing and also the one that won first place, and I think about, you know, like an artist like Edward Hopper. You think about the sort of melancholic orientation to the world. You think of empty spaces. You think of things that are designed for humans that no one's using. You think of the transitional time of the year where it's not, where the trees still have leaves, but the days aren't so sunny. You know, every part of this has this sort of, is embedded with this sort of melancholy, which is something that I think is really hard to achieve in art. And that is, you know, something I'm personally very drawn to. Let's see. All right, Keith, are you here? So, you know, this was, oh, there you are, Keith. Great. Well, this is, you know, I am in this location like all the time. And I was so taken aback by how well it was just captured. And to say that it looks just like it is to misrepresent the painting. I think this painting understands what it feels like to be in the space, the quality of the light, the way that the sun feels. I mean, it just, the way the space is used, the way that the wooden benches are like they feel against your skin. I mean, it feels like it understands the area in a way that I just was, I was actually sort of taken aback almost in a uncanny way when I saw this. So it was, you know, really exciting to see.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So that is it for this part. So I'm going to go back to stop sharing my screen. You know, I'm happy to answer questions for a few minutes if anyone has them. I don't know if there's been stuff going on in the chat that I should take a look at. I'll take a quick look.
And we didn't have too much in the chat. Some of the sizes of paintings and material weren't submitted, so we couldn't put that in.
Sure.
I was
Um,
wondering,
th-
I'm
oh, yeah.
sorry. I wondered who won first place. I missed that. I may have been cut off.
Yeah, it was early on
Oh,
in the presentation, but it was Kathleen Wirt for Tangle.
oh,
Um,
she won first place. Okay, I see it. Okay.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful drawing.
Yes, yes, I remember it very well. Beautiful.
I did someone else have a question? I think I saw someone. Maybe not. Oh,
So it was really, really nice how you went around and talked about each work, and obvious how much time you put into selecting them and thinking about them and what you brought to them. It was a real gift to everybody, and I very much appreciate that. I have one question. So the show is not about, it's called merging, but it's, you know, everybody's work. And I was just wondering, did you think about, you know, how the work related to the title at all, or how did you kind of curate the show in terms of selecting the works as a whole show?
Sure. So, you know, when I initially thought about the category of emerging, and I looked at the work, I honestly didn't feel like a ton of the work went with the theme of emerging. So I thought of, and then I started to think if there were different ways to think about emergence. And, you know, a lot of the way that you know, as you heard me talk about the work, I was talking often about blending spaces or works that do two things in contrast. Or, you know, when we think about, you know, your work, Robin, thinking about the permeability, that there is a kind of emergence that happens when two forms move into each other's spaces. So I started to think less about emergence and like, oh, you know, the flowers are coming out at spring, and thinking more of emergence as almost an embrace of the periphery, or yeah, those kinds of ideas of like what happens when something is both diagrammatic and spatial. You know, what emerges there. So I think that I reframed initially how I thought I might go through and think about the exhibition based off of, you know, what seemed to emerge from, that was not intended to be a pun, but what seemed to emerge from, you know, looking at all the work.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of looking at emerging is coming out of COVID and emerging back into the world. Although it looks like we may be going back into the hole afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that also influenced my, you know, emerging has felt so tenuous that it's, you know, maybe that's where it was reflected in the work also, that, you know, emerging can feel scary. I mean, it can feel like as soon as you do it, you need to come. I don't know. I mean, it feels like emerging is, you know, the more you talk about it, a kind of a more interesting topic for consideration.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So any other questions or comments? So thank you all so much. Robert, thank you so much for doing such a fabulous job and taking so much time and care and thought and putting that into all of our works. You did a wonderful job as a juror. We hope you'll juror again for us someday. And that was really fantastic.
Yeah, happy to see all their work, and, you know, please, you know, keep me posted with any updates. I really, like I said, very much appreciated getting to know your work, and I'd love to see more of it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And please